Welcome to the audio version of my blog, Deeper Dimensions. I'm happy you're here. In this blog, I peer into the deeper dimensions of existence to unearth practical ideas for bringing meaning to everyday moments and to crises. I offer these discoveries to you to invite you to explore your own depths so that you can discover your call, your will, your impulsive nature. I'd love to let you know about the latest posts in Deeper Dimensions, and if you'd like to receive the latest updates, you can subscribe at deeperdimensions.com. So, whether you're looking for words to inspire, console, challenge, or teach, sit back and make yourself at home. Hi, welcome to this week's post, Bearing Our Souls, a crash course in soothing the overwhelming emotions of a pandemic, Part 5. What the emotions of upheaval are about. It starts with a section of a poem by Gregory Orr. Not to make loss beautiful, but to make loss the place where beauty starts, where the heart understands for the first time the nature of its journey. Stably unstable. That's how I've been feeling during these ongoing weeks of the social difficulties wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic. I've been waking up to the lie my basically hopeful self had planted way down in the shadows of my mind. Unbeknownst to me, I was believing that I'd pressed pause on my life while we get this coronavirus thing under control, and when it was over, I'd press play to be reunited with the life I had before. Yet, recently, reality punched me in the gut. I have no idea how long it'll be before I can gather with friends or safely invite clients and groups to return to my office to meet in person. No idea how to figure out what safe is anyway. No idea which businesses I love will still exist. No idea whether people I care about who are either unemployed or working on the front lines will even be in my community anymore. The events and community I use to organize myself around are unreachable for an undetermined period of time, some forever. With seemingly no one in charge who has a plan and no end to this craziness in sight, I've been feeling unmoored and chaotic inside. Even though I hate the way this coming apart emotion feels, it makes sense to me because I know what it's about. That's why, even though the emotion I'm experiencing is a feeling of instability, I feel stable within the experience of my unstableness. Understanding what the instability is about puts it into a context that allows me to not only not worry about myself, but also to brainstorm ways of taking care of myself within the icky feeling emotional state. As I've written in earlier parts of the series, if you're contending with or paralyzed by an emotion, and you offer yourself kindness and presence, like I described in part 1 of the series, and you become gently curious about what specifically you're feeling, you might be able to discern exactly what the emotion is. And accurately naming your emotion causes your brain to calm itself. In this calmer state, the act of putting words to the specific emotion you're feeling begins the process of making sense of it. Parts 3 and 4 of this series describe that. Making sense of the emotion helps you discern what actions, emotional expressions, or distractions will truly help you move through your feelings or healthily bear your emotional state if it's ongoing. An additional aspect of naming your emotions accurately and making sense of them is to understand what your emotions are about. Understanding what your emotions are about gives nuance and depth to your self-compassion and gives a calming context for even chaotic emotions. During a time when the rug has been yanked out from under your old life and you're left to survive that shock in an indefinite, bizarre, socially distanced world, emotions can be about many different kinds of things, some of them not obvious. All of the feelings I described in part 4 of this series, such as grief, disappointment, anger, loneliness, etc., are about something. Pairing the feeling itself with what it's about gives you the capacity to understand your feelings with exquisite accuracy. What feelings are commonly about during times of upheaval? 1. Feelings about missed and disrupted experiences, events, and social engagements. During this time of isolation, every single one of us has experienced the loss and disruption of multiple big events, of hopes and dreams, and of everyday social connections with people we care about. All aspects of grief, disappointment, loneliness, fear, and every other emotion can arise in reference to these missed experiences, people, and events. Allowing yourself to know and name the specificity of what you're grieving about can help the emotions of grief arise more clearly and to be expressed. For example, I feel the sadness of grief about not getting to have my clients sit across from me in my office and about not getting to have my therapist consultation groups gather together with noisy affection in my group room. I also feel grief's warrior energy about claiming video sessions and meetings for all of those same folks, even though it's not my preferred method of working. I feel disappointed about the ongoing lack of energy I feel to work on creative endeavors. I feel scared about not being able to visit my elderly mother without the potential of infecting her with something deadly, and lots of other feelings about lots of other things I've lost in all this. I'm sure you feel multiple emotions about many missed events and disrupted experiences in your life. Paying attention to which losses and disruptions your feelings are about can help you tame and express them. 2. Feelings about social turmoil. We humans are built to be social. In the depths of our bodies and souls, we're wired to need proximity to and touch from other humans for regulation of all our emotions and our physical states. This state of being ripped away from our communities and loved ones is profoundly unnatural to us as creatures. Thus, living in quarantine, walking away when we approach a fellow human, not touching each other, or simply not spending time in stores and restaurants with each other is biologically and emotionally distressing. And the uncertainty about how long this painfully abnormal situation will last leads to its own kind of pain and fear that I just described in depth in part 2 of this series. That means social distress and uncertainty is constantly hovering in the background with most of us these days, leading to fatigue, weepiness, irritability, and despair. Once again, understanding that some of your emotions might be about the ongoing social distress and uncertainty that are inherent in each moment of our days can help you more accurately attend to what kind of comfort you need. 3. Feelings about shattered assumptions. When something as profoundly, universally disruptive and challenging as this pandemic occurs, it's normal to be thrown into an existential crisis. That means, in addition to having feelings of grief and pain about the many losses and concrete life disruptions caused by the coronavirus, you may be experiencing an array of emotions about the breaking open of basic unconscious assumptions about life. The idea of shattered assumptions is really helpful in understanding what these kinds of feelings are about. This concept says that in order to make it through the day, we all hold largely unconscious assumptions about ourselves, our external world, and the relationship between the two, such as the world is benevolent, the world is meaningful, the self is worthy. We use these models of the world to perceive events, construct plans, and forecast the future. My unconscious belief that my life was on pause until I could press play again is an example of one of these assumptions. These assumptions are at some level positive illusions that protect us from perceiving at a gut level the true fragility and risks of life, and they allow us to have the confidence we need to forge ahead into new experiences in daily life. When something such as the pandemic happens that completely alters our entire lives beyond our own choice or control, these basic life assumptions or illusions about the way the world works can be shattered. Ronnie Janoff Boldman, who writes about shattered assumptions, says when any one of our fundamental assumptions about life is seriously challenged, an intense psychological crisis is induced. The new data do not resemble normal change. The assault on fundamental assumptions is massive. The disruption does not produce the psychological equivalent of superficial scratches that heal readily, but deep bodily wounds that require far more in the way of restorative efforts. The injury is to our inner world. That's what happened to me when I awoke to the fact that my pause-play belief was an illusion. I felt viscerally, painfully untethered and anguished. The basic assumptions that are shattered by this kind of existential life challenge can be smaller and specific, like my situation, or they can be enormous and generalized. Suddenly, we become dramatically aware that bad things can happen to us, that we are not ultimately protected and safe, that the universe might contain elements of randomness and chance, that we don't have ultimate control. We are forced to confront our own fragility at a deep experiential level, so our actual vulnerability is revealed to us. So any of the emotions you're feeling might be about having to face and feel the shattered assumptions of your life. And these emotions occur in addition to the feelings you're having about the concrete losses of events and life disruptions that have occurred. 4. Feelings about others' experiences. Because the COVID-19 crisis is happening to all of us throughout the world, you're probably having emotions for yourself as well as on behalf of others, your loved ones and community members, as well as people in far-flung parts of your city, state, country, and the world. That means any of the emotions you're having might be about what's happening to someone else. I know I felt immense grief on behalf of a couple dear to me who'd been planning their March wedding for over a year and who had to cancel that wedding at the last minute. I felt profound disappointment about my son's hard-earned, long-planned travel plans being destroyed. I feel ongoing fear, sadness, and gratitude for all the frontline healthcare and service workers who are facing COVID threats on behalf of all of us every day. I feel anguish and overwhelm about all the people who have lost jobs in this mess. It's normal and an important aspect of compassion for you to feel emotions about other people's experiences and feelings in a situation like this. Feelings of helplessness about not being able to fix any of these situations can also follow. Here's a tip. Being with and sending care are things that do help others in situations like these, not trying to fix it or trying to talk people out of their feelings. You can read my article about wanting to help your grieving friend for details. 5. Feelings about old traumas. When you're experiencing emotions as intense as the ones that commonly arise during times of upheaval, it's normal for those emotions to awaken and bring to the foreground similar emotions that are related to events that happened in the past. The story I told in part 3 of this series about how the feelings of being pulled in two directions at once, that is, sincerely desiring to write to share my knowledge about emotions during this time versus desperately needing to allow myself to have downtime and not challenge myself creatively, illustrates the way this can work. My current state of being pulled in two directions caused by the coronavirus situation dragged out from my past an enormous and traumatic feeling of being torn in two that I lived with for some years after my husband died suddenly when my son was a baby. Once I understood that my present-day pain about feeling simultaneously pulled in two directions was amplified by past feelings about being torn in two after my husband died, I could tease apart the emotions and express them fittingly. I could mourn for my past self and feel those extremely intense emotions as belonging to that old experience. Then I was better able to discern how to take care of myself today in the middle of my difficult but not traumatic present emotions. Your current emotions might very well be tugging on past experiences, and those experiences may or may not be traumatic. They may simply resemble your current emotions in some form. Understanding that emotions you feel today may be about both current life events and past experiences can give you much needed emotional clarity. Continued kindness, compassion, and clarity arises. Adding the skill of discerning what your emotions are about to your repertoire of emotional tools, in addition to the toolbox you've been accumulating from the earlier articles in this series, will lead you to be able to kindly and accurately understand yourself and others more clearly every day. And feeling clearly feels better. In the next and final article in this series, Part 6, I'll show you how to use what you're learning about how to be kind and present with yourself as you name what your emotions are and what they're about to express and soothe all of these emotions. Right now, I'm feeling gratitude about the fact that you're here reading the words I've written, and gratitude about the ways the knowledge I've gained about emotions in the years since my husband died can be helpful to you during this very difficult time. I'd love to hear what your emotions are about. As always, thanks for listening. And if you'd like to subscribe, go to deeperdimensions.com. See you next week.